YouTubers. So I would like to do a review today on the new Atlas GP40-2. The newer versions, the gold versions, now come with ESU Loksound decoders, and in my opinion one of the better, if not best sounding decoders that are out there. Anyway, so the unit I have today is a Phase 2 GP40-2 painted in CHESSIE System, Western Maryland number 4354. It is a Phase 2 unit, and some of the spotting differences from a Phase 2 to a Phase 1 has an 88-inch nose, extended range dynamic brakes, and front anti-climber on it. It's a pointed anti-climber that was common that CHESSIE System liked to use. So pulling this out of the box it's a pretty simple thing to do. There's you pull a sleeve off the box, then open the box, and then there's a plastic sleeve, and there's a couple screws in the bottom of the locomotive that are screwed into a tray. And if you look there, they offer plugs that you can just put to plug up those holes from the screws. So anyway, it's a very nicely detailed locomotive, and it has LED lighting. As I mentioned, ESU Loksound decoder. I believe they use Loksound Select direct decoders on these locomotives, so it has an older sound file on it, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe you could probably upgrade these with a lock programmer. Don't quote me on that, it's just a guess. Educated one at that. So when I looked over the model, it is very detailed. Has MU hoses, air hoses on the front, uncoupler lift bar. On the front is the anti-climber. It's the pointed anti-climber. Then you got separately applied grab irons on the front. Okay, you got windshield wipers on the front, very nicely detailed. There's the correct K5 horn on top. It is silver, and CHESSIE System did paint some of their horns silver. Some are blue. It just depends on the photos, but haven't checked out photos of this locomotive yet, but they did paint the K5 horns silver. Crew figures on the inside. You get cab sunshades and the deflector mirrors. Those came on as separate add-on pieces. I've already added them on prior to doing this review, so but they're on there. They pop right into the holes real easily. You see Western Maryland 4354. There's a builder's plate there. Electrical cabinet and air filter box. Dynamic brake. The radiator section with the correct corrugated grills. And we're going to move to the top here. As you see on the top, they got the dynamic brake fan, and then the radiator fans. These are new moldings on these. These are etched metal grills instead of the two-piece fans Atlas used to put on their locomotives. Here's the K5 horn on the top. And the bell on the Phase 2 GP40-2s for CHESSIE System are on the hood mount side, and on the Phase 2s they were located on the engineer side. We're going to flip this around, go to the rear, and it's more of the same on the back. Your number boards, separately applied grab irons, the drop step on the back, which is operating, MU hoses, air hose, uncoupler lift bar, and the low profile plow on the rear end of that. And that is also correct for the chassis. We'll flip this around to the engineer side. Should also mention that it has the correct battery slot covers Chessie was known to have right there. Cab figure on that side. Okay, there's the dynamic brake again, and the bell right there. So, very nicely detailed. Paint was very nicely done. The only gripe I have about the paint is if you look at the number boards, the numbers seem to be a little bit too small for my taste anyway for the number boards. If you look at prototype photos of the chassis number boards, the numbers really filled up the boards to basically full capacity, so to speak. But if I get a hair up my butt, I guess I can always correct that at a later date. You may notice that I've started some weathering. I've dull coated this, and I have added Katie scale couplers to the front and rear. It's ready to go. I have it programmed, etc. I got a train show coming up this weekend, the Great Berea Train Show. Anybody in the Cleveland area, welcome to come. Yep, shameless plug. Anyway, I did measure the coupler against the Katie coupler height gauge, and they were all in perfect gauge. They were at the correct height and everything, so no worries there. It's ready to go. So let's see. And in a second, I'm going to put it on my test track and fire it up. Okay, so I got the Locomotive on the test track. As I mentioned, this has an ESU Loksound decoder, and I believe it's an older sound file before the full throttle mode. So if you like running the full throttle mode using all the features, this won't work too well with it. And I'm sure it is upgradable. It's an educated guess, but from what I understand, that these are standard Loksound selects in here. You can select the different horns on there. I selected the K5, of course, for this Locomotive. And let's fire it up and take a quick listen. Like I stated, it has LED headlighting. One of the things I noticed about this was that the headlight is in a dimmable mode, so whenever it's idle, it's dim, and then when you accelerate, the light gets brighter, and when you stop, it gets dim again. And just to show you the quick, a nice slow speed performance with in the Atlas Locomotive and a Loksound decoder, I'm going to just hit speed step 1 and you can see how it crawls. No lurching or anything. So there you go, pretty nice detailed locomotive right out of the box. Quick, easy to run. Only have to add a couple of details as far as the CHESSIE locomotive is concerned. Sunshades and deflectors, but that's about it. Like I stated earlier, I changed out the couplers and put Katie's in. They look much nicer. They're the Katie scale couplers. Operating drop steps, nice detail, and it's a nice locomotive for us CHESSIE modelers that the Genesis line had the phase 1 and phase 3s, or phase 2Bs as the prototype like to call them, and Atlas has now the phase 2s to fill that gap nicely for us CHESSIE modelers to have all 3 phases in our rosters. So they do offer it in other road names, Conrail being one, and I don't know the other ones right off the top of my head. I got this at a pretty good price at $188 from a hobby shop online, and I'm sure if you look you can find some without decoders as low as $124. Just depends where you look. I found mine on eBay, so got a really good deal and picked it up right away. Atlas had been holding off production of these for a long time. There were production delays and what have you, and they were finally released just this past week, and I was proud to receive this and do a quick review on it. So anyway, this is my layman's review of this locomotive, and this is not what it looks like out of the box. I started weathering, dull coating, and etc. on it, so what you're going to get is a nice, clean, shiny new model with AccuMate couplers. So, and like I stated, you have to add a couple of details on it. But anyway, that's just my quick review on this. It's a nice locomotive. It'll look good in a lash up with some of my Athearn Genesis CHESSIE locomotives, and look forward to running this at the upcoming train show. Thank you everybody for watching, and if you like, leave a message or a comment, and I usually reply within 24 hours. And catch y'all later on the outside. Blind Modeler out.